Alright, welcome to my bike check. It's a bit late. It's been my most requested video by far. In fact, if you search BC POV on YouTube, it actually suggests bike check. So that means a lot of you guys have been searching for my bike check and I just haven't made it. So sorry about that, guys. I should have done it a long time ago. But without further ado, here's my evil reckoning. So this is my evil reckoning. It's a 29er, 160mm travel front and back. As many of you might know, I got this frame while I was in Japan because my slash broke and I couldn't get new parts. And then I moved all my parts over to this bike. So let's start out with a Cockpit. I run 800mm bars. The bars are aluminum. They were a cheap set I found in Japan, but I actually kind of like them. The brand is the Bomb Detonator, which is probably the worst name ever for handlebars. For the grips, I run ODI Rogue. I used to run a thinner grip, and I found that I would get a lot of finger fatigue. So switching to the thicker grips just kind of dampens the vibrations and helps a lot. I'm running a Raceface Atlas stem, 35mm long, and to fit on the 35mm bars. For a shifter, I'm just running a SRAM GX shifter, just because I'm cheap. On the left side, I've got the remote for my bike yoke dropper post, which is extremely ergonomic. And speaking of the dropper post, this is probably the best dropper post I've ever owned. It's been extremely reliable so far. It's got 185mm of drop, and it has a bleed valve to separate the air from the oil within the post, which is a common problem with the RockShox Reverb or the KS Lev. And now onto the saddle. The saddle is probably the most asked about part of my bike, just because it's so unique looking. The saddle is a Tioga Outland Spider, and it's so comfortable. I had tried so many different saddles. I had a lot of, let's say, blood flow issues in that area. I saw the review for the saddle on Pink Bike and I decided to give it a try. And yeah, it's probably the most comfortable saddle I've ridden on. Back to the Cockpit, I'm running a set of Shimano St Brakes. I really like these brakes. They tend to be pretty quiet, except when they aren't. But they have a lot of stopping power. They're famous for being a little bit grabby, but I guess that's the trade-off you have when you have a lot of stopping power. And I've got these brakes paired with Shimano Icetech rotors. The bigger 203mm up front and the 180mm rotor in the back. I always run the metallic pads. I find that organic pads just disappear so fast. As many of you know, the Evil Reckoning is a 29er, so I've got a set of Noble wheels in 29. So the rim is a TR33, which has an internal width of 27mm. I've cased a lot of things with these wheels and they're still true and they still roll straight, and yeah, they're awesome. For the hubs, I'm running Project 321. Their unique features that they have magnetic pawls instead of springs, which makes them quite a bit quieter and really low drag. They also have 216 points of engagement, which is pretty slick, and the weight is quite good as well. As for tires, right now I'm running Magic Marys front and back. The front has the snakeskin casing, and the back is the super gravity casing. This is my winter setup though. I tend to run a Magic Mary in the front year round. The back tire varies. I keep trying different tires. I do like the Magic Mary a lot in the back, but it's kind of slow rolling. Here in Vancouver it gets quite wet in the winter, so the extra grip is definitely very handy. So in the drivetrain department, I'm still running an 11-speed setup. So I'm just running an X01 cassette and an X01 derailleur. I find 12-speed isn't really that necessary here in Vancouver, just because the trails generally aren't that fast and you don't really need that much range. On the chainstay, I've just added this Gorilla Tape to protect from chain slap. For the chainring, I have a 32-tooth absolute black oval chainring. These are kind of interesting. I find it does help on technical climbing, but just a little bit. And the thing with these rings is that they cost about the same as a normal ring. And if you wear out your normal ring, it's not really a big deal to try one of these out. Yeah, I just get these now because they're just a little bit better. For the cranks, I'm running a Raceface 6C crank in 170mm. They've been good. In reality, they're probably not worth the money. They still weigh more than the turbine cranks, and I would say the turbine cranks are just more reliable. For the pedals, I'm running a Time MX8 pedal, which is a little unusual. I used to run Shimano XT trail pedals exclusively, but as my riding progressed, I started blowing out of them more and more and more, and it was starting to get dangerous actually. But these Time pedals have a fairly large float, which means the amount you have to twist your foot before it'll release. In the case of the Times, you can set the release angle to be either 13 or 17 degrees. I have mine set to 13. So now let's talk about some suspension stuff. The Wreckoning has a chip that you can flip around to run it in low or extra low. Most companies just call it high and low, but Evil's special, so they call it extra low and low. I just put mine in extra low as soon as I got it. I've never actually tried riding it with low. I should probably try it, but I know I just want a slack head angle and a low bottom bracket. And that's what that gets me, so I just set it and forget it. For the shock, I'm running a Fox X2. Right now I have the shock full of volume spacers, as full as it'll go, but it's still not enough. I find this suspension is a little too linear and it's too easy to bottom out. If I do bigger drops, the bottom out is pretty harsh. Big bottom out! And that's with the shock set to 20-25% sag. The recommended is 30, so. Another thing is that when I bottom out hard, the rear tire just touches the seat tube, so it was kind of taking the paint off a little bit. So that's why I put that strip of tape there. Up front, I've got a Fox 36, 160 millimeters, and I think 3 volume spacers in there right now. I really do enjoy this fork though. I used to have a RockShox Lyric, and this is more of a firm race feel, whereas the Lyric is more of like a plush traditional feel. For the mudguard on the front, I'm running a Zafal deflector, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's probably a step up from like Mucky Nuts or something like that. So a lot of people ask me how I like this bike compared to the Slash. When I got on this bike, I felt right at home right away. Like the geo numbers are pretty close to the Slash. It just felt really similar actually. The biggest difference is the rear suspension. The Wreckoning is a lot more plush than the Slash. Partially just because it has more travel in the back, but I think also the suspension layout is also quite different. Like I mentioned before, it kind of blows through the travel, so it feels plush until you bottom out, and when you bottom out, it feels pretty harsh. Overall, I think I might like it a little better than the Slash. I thought the Slash was it wasn't worth the money. The Slash is so expensive, but it's not really better than a lot of other bikes on the market. Both good bikes, both with their pros and cons. So that's the bike check done and dusted, finally. I'm so sorry it took so long, but you know, I had just so much footage to go through and I just wanted to get those trails out to you guys as soon as I could. But it's been a year, so I had to do it. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. This frame is actually going to be for sale, so keep an eye out for that on Pink Bike. I've actually got a new frame and I'm going to be building up a new bike. Make sure you hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as soon as I announce that frame, you'll know what it is. All right, thanks guys.